France and England, the legendary rivalry that stretches back 1,000 years. Their relationship is one of the most interesting to study, and in doing so I've realized something. France and England aren't really enemies or even rivals. They're frenemies. Hello everybody and welcome to History Abridged. It's history, just shorter. Frenemies, according to Urban Dictionary, always a reliable source, is someone who is both a friend and an enemy, or a relationship that is both mutually beneficial or dependent, and fraught with risk and mistrust. You'll find other definitions online as well, but that's the one I'm going to use. This perfectly describes France and England. All throughout their history, they've been fighting each other, then aligning with each other, and marrying into each other's royal families, both while vying for control and power. They once even fought a war for 116 years. That's ridiculous! Although their relationship does actually make a little bit of sense. They are the two biggest powers throughout most of Europe's history. And despite how many times they've been on the opposite side of a war, France and England seem to always band together when either Europe or the power balance in Europe is under threat. Examples include the First Crusade, the height of the Spanish Empire in the 17th century, and more recently, World War I and World War II. Their relationship started way back in 1066, when William the Conqueror of Normandy did what he, was named for and conquered England. After he died, he split his property between his two sons. England went to William, and Normandy went to Robert. Now, Robert went off on a crusade, which led to William being in control of both. But then William died, and his little brother Henry took over both. Then Robert got back and was all like, "Yo man, give me my stuff back." And Henry was like, "Okay, but I'm keeping this bit." And Robert was like, "Fine." Then he changed his mind and invaded England. Eventually they reached a peace, but then Henry was like, "Psych!" took over Normandy and threw his brother in prison for the rest of his life. Then King Louis IV of actual France was like, "Normandy is mine!" He invaded, lost, and was like, "Never mind, be cool." So after that, you might be starting to get a sense of why France and England are the way they are. Their background is all weird and Game of Thronesy. And then came the High Medieval era, which was, a mess. There were a lot of wars and a couple attempts at peace, but then the 100 Years' War happened. And trying to make sense out of that is like trying to read a coherent story in alphabet soup. Just as England invaded, took a bunch of land, then eventually got pushed out. And while it can be confusing, the 100 Years' War is actually really important in their history. See, it was the first time both of their countries really had to rally to their flag and unite politically. Because before then, wars were mostly just fought between feudal lords. Eventually, they even became rivals in their religions. After the Protestant Reformation, Protestants in France started fleeing to England, and Catholics in England started fleeing to France. They did ally for a time when Spain became too powerful, but as soon as Spain was dealt with, they went back to fighting. And then they moved to the New World, where they did a lot of trading as well as, murdering each other. They fought the 7 Years' War, and after that, France assisted the colonies in the American War for Independence. And then the French Revolution happened, and then Napoleon, and everything was a mess, and up until the 20th century, they were just at each other's throats. And then something really, really weird happened. Believe it or not, they became best friends. I'm 100% serious right now. They even signed documents. In 1904, both nations signed the Entente Cordiale. I'm not French. That was probably wrong. According to this agreement, neither nation could obstruct either one of the other nation's colonies. It's specifically related to Egypt and Morocco. And it also said that they would assist each other to preserve order. And what actually led to this was basically neither of them had any friends left. England only had Japan, and they kind of lived a ways away. And France only really had Russia, who is currently being discredited for trying to beat up Japan. From this point on, France and England basically did everything together. They fought side by side during World War I. They worked really closely together on the Treaty of Versailles. They worked together to try to appease Germany. And when that didn't work, they declared war on Germany on the very same day, thus starting World War II. After France surrendered, England vowed to free them, and when they did, they proposed that France get a certain amount of occupied Germany. They both became permanent members of the UN, and then collaborated on the Suez Crisis. I just realized that France and England are a lot like Benedict and Beatrice from Much Ado About Nothing. They're constantly insulting each other, making fun of each other, and scheming against each other, and then suddenly realize they're in love. They've drifted apart since then, but the point still stands. England and France are the best/worst frenemies history has ever seen.